Jake Morrison walked slowly across the huge metal floor of the Galactic Council building. His boots made small clicking sounds that echoed in the massive room. Above him, the ceiling stretched so high he could barely see the top. Hundreds of alien beings sat in tall chairs, all looking down at him with eyes that glowed different colors. The human admiral kept his back straight and his hands behind him. He had been a soldier for 30 years, and he would not show fear now. Not even when the entire galaxy was about to judge his people. Lisa Grant stood next to him, her briefcase full of papers and data files. She was Earth's best diplomat and had spent months preparing for this moment. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and she wore the formal blue uniform that represented humanity in these halls. Behind them stood Captain Ben Hayes and Colonel Amy Fisher. Both were strong military officers who had fought in the recent wars. They watched the alien council members with careful eyes, ready for anything. The leader of the council was a tall crystal being called Zeftar. His body looked like it was made of living glass, and when he spoke, his voice rang like musical bells. But there was no music in his words today. "The human species has been found guilty," Zeftar announced. His voice filled every corner of the giant room. "You are too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable to remain with civilized races." Jake Morrison felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Around the room, creatures with tentacles, fur, scales, and stranger things all nodded in agreement. Some had multiple heads. Others floated in the air. A few looked almost human, but with skin colors that ranged from deep purple to bright orange. "The Galactic Federation has made its decision," the crystal being continued. "All humans must leave known space within 72 standard days. You will go beyond the outer rim, to the dark sector. You may never return." Lisa Grant stepped forward. Her voice was calm and professional, though her heart was beating fast. "Honorable Counselor, we ask you to reconsider. Humanity has given much to the galaxy. Our doctors have saved millions of lives. Our engineers have built stations that benefit everyone. Our explorers have found new worlds for all species to use." A creature that looked like a giant squid with arms waved its tentacles angrily. "Saved lives? Your people destroyed 3 of our battle fleets in the Hegemony War. You turned an entire star system into a weapons testing ground. You fight like demons and enjoy it." Ben Hayes wanted to speak up. Those battles had been defensive. The Hegemony had attacked human colonies first, killing thousands of innocent people. Humanity had only fought back to protect their families, but he stayed quiet. This was not a trial about facts, this was about fear. "We defended ourselves," Lisa said firmly. "Every conflict we participated in was started by others attacking us first. We have never been the aggressors." Another alien, this one covered in blue fur with 6 arms, spoke up. "Defense? You call it defense when your species develops new weapons every month, when your soldiers study warfare like other races study art, when your children play games about fighting?" Amy Fisher almost smiled at that. It was true that humans were good at fighting. They seemed to have a natural talent for it that other species found disturbing, but that talent had kept them alive when enemies tried to wipe them out. Zeftar raised one crystal arm for silence. "The decision is final. Humanity will be quarantined in the dark sector. Any human ship found in Federation space after the deadline will be destroyed immediately. No warnings will be given." The words hit like a physical blow. Jake Morrison had expected this outcome, but hearing it spoken aloud was different. His people were being thrown out of the civilized galaxy like criminals. "How long?" he asked quietly. "What?" Zeftar's crystal face showed confusion. "How long is this banishment? Are we exiled forever? Or is there some way to earn our place back?" The alien council members looked at each other. Whispered conversations in dozens of different languages filled the air. Finally, Zeftar spoke again. "There is no return, Admiral. Morrison, your species is too dangerous to ever be allowed back. This is permanent exile." Jake Morrison nodded slowly. He had been prepared for this answer too. "Very well. We will gather our people and leave as ordered." Lisa Grant wanted to argue more, but she could see it was hopeless. The decision had been made before they ever entered this room. This whole trial had been for show, to make the other species feel better about what they were doing. As they turned to leave, Amy Fisher spoke for the first time. "You should know that you are making a mistake. Humans are at their most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose." The threat made several alien council members shift nervously in their seats, but Zeftar's crystal form remained steady. "Your threats prove our point, Colonel. This is exactly why you must go." The four humans walked out of the council chamber in silence. Once they were in the hallway, Ben Hayes finally spoke. "Sir, what are our orders?" Jake Morrison looked out through a massive window at the space around them. Ships from dozens of species moved in neat patterns, following traffic laws that kept everything organized and safe. It was a beautiful sight, this galactic civilization working together in harmony. Soon humanity would be cut off from all of it. "Signal all human colonies and military commands," Morrison said. "We have 72 days to evacuate everyone. Every person, every ship, every piece of equipment that we want to keep." Lisa Grant was already working on her datapad. "I'll coordinate with the civilian authorities. There are over 4 billion humans spread across 47 different worlds and space stations. This is going to be the largest evacuation in history." Amy Fisher pulled up star charts on her portable display. "The dark sector is mostly unexplored, space beyond the spiral arm. Long-range scans show hostile environments, dangerous radiation levels, and very few habitable worlds. It's basically a wasteland." "Then that's where we'll make our new home," Morrison replied. "We'll turn that wasteland into something better." Ben Hayes studied the data with military eyes. "Sir, the logistics are going to be enormous. We'll need thousands of transport ships, supplies for the journey, and equipment to establish new colonies in hostile territory." "We'll manage," Morrison said. "Humans always do." The evacuation began within hours. Emergency broadcasts went out to every human settlement in the galaxy. Families started packing belongings they had collected over generations. Scientists gathered research data that represented decades of work. Soldiers prepared weapons and equipment for an uncertain future. Pete Collins, one of humanity's best engineers, worked day and night to modify ships for the harsh conditions they expected to find. His teams installed better radiation shielding, improved life support systems, and expanded cargo holds to carry everything they might need. "We're not just running away," he told his workers as they labored around the clock. "We're preparing for something new, something those aliens will never expect." The evacuation fleet grew larger every day. Massive colony ships designed to carry thousands of people joined military vessels bristling with weapons. Cargo haulers loaded with industrial equipment traveled alongside scientific research ships filled with precious knowledge. As the deadline approached, humanity took one last look at the civilization they were leaving behind. Many had been born in Federation space and knew no other home. Children asked their parents why they had to go, and the adults struggled to explain a decision that made no sense. On the final day, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last human vessels gathered at the edge of known space. Behind them lay everything they had built as part of galactic society. Ahead lay the unknown darkness of the sector, where no civilized species dared to go. "All ships report ready for departure," his communications officer announced. Morrison took a deep breath. "Signal the fleet, we jump in 10 minutes. As the countdown began, he thought about the Galactic Council and their comfortable civilization. They believed they had solved their problem by sending humanity away. They thought the dangerous humans would disappear into the darkness and eventually die out, leaving the galaxy peaceful and safe. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The dark sector welcomed humanity with storms of deadly radiation and gravity fields that could tear ships apart. Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the colony ship New Hope, watching his fleet spread across their first destination, System. The rocky planet below them looked nothing like the green worlds they had left behind. "Radiation levels are 3 times higher than our worst projections," reported Katie Adams, the chief scientist of the expedition. She had been studying the sensor readings for hours, and the news kept getting worse. "The atmospheric processors are working at maximum power, just to create small safe zones around our landing sites. Amy Fisher, now promoted to general, studied the tactical displays showing their scattered ships. The evacuation fleet had been forced to split up across multiple star systems because no single world could support all 4 billion refugees. We have 17 major colony ships spread across 12 different systems. Some of our people are so far apart that radio messages take 6 hours to reach them. The first months were brutal. Colonists who had lived comfortable lives on civilized worlds now struggled to build shelters on planets where the very air could kill them. Equipment failed constantly under the harsh conditions. Supply lines stretched to the breaking point as ships tried to support settlements scattered across impossible distances. But something strange began to happen. Instead of giving up or dying out as the Galactic Council had expected, humans began to adapt in ways that surprised even themselves. Pete Collins led engineering teams that turned the sector's dangerous radiation into a source of power. "Look at these readings," he called out to his crew, pointing at energy measurements on his display. "These cosmic storms aren't random destruction. There's a pattern here, a natural phenomenon we can use." His teams developed new shielding techniques that not only protected human settlements but actually collected energy from the radiation storms. Within weeks, human colonies had more power available than they had ever possessed in Federation space. The crushing gravity on some worlds forced humans to develop stronger construction methods. The toxic atmospheres on others led to advances in life support technology. Every challenge the Dark Sector threw at them became an opportunity to build something better. Captain Ron Blake made a discovery that changed everything while surveying the outer edge of their new territory. His scout ship had been running routine scans when the sensors detected something impossible. "Admiral Morrison, you need to see this immediately," Blake transmitted from his ship. "I'm reading massive artificial structures, but they're ancient, older than any civilization we know about." The structures were enormous, clearly built by beings with technology far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. They orbited dead stars and floated in the emptiness between systems, dark and silent for thousands of years. Lisa Grant led the first teams to explore these mysterious installations. As the expedition's best diplomat, she had experience dealing with alien cultures, though nothing had prepared her for this. "The builders called themselves the Architects," she explained during a briefing with the colony leaders. "Based on what? We can translate from their data storage devices. They were the galaxy's dominant species long before any of the current races evolved. Something destroyed them about 50,000 years ago." The Architect technology was incredibly advanced, but also incredibly dangerous. Most species would have approached such discoveries with extreme caution, forming committees and spending years in careful study. The Federation would have created bureaucratic departments to oversee every aspect of the research. Humans had a different approach. "We learn by doing," declared Danny Park, the expedition's chief technical officer. "We reverse engineer what we can understand and test everything else through hands-on experimentation. If something explodes, we figure out why. If it works, we make it work better." This philosophy led to breakthrough after breakthrough. Human engineers began incorporating architect principles into their own designs, though they didn't simply copy the ancient technology. They improved it. The architects had built their machines to last forever, which made them incredibly durable but also impossible to modify. Humans redesigned the technology to be more flexible, easier to repair, and capable of being upgraded as they learned more. Ships became faster and more durable as human engineers installed modified architect power systems. Weapons gained new capabilities by combining human military thinking with ancient energy manipulation techniques. Most importantly, humans developed manufacturing processes that could produce advanced technology at scales the architects had never imagined. Katie. Adam spent months studying architect scientific databases, translating their research into terms humans could understand. They were brilliant scientists, she told her team, but they thought like academics. Everything was theoretical and perfect. "We think like engineers. We want to know what works in the real world." The difference in approach became clear when humans began rebuilding architect installations. The original builders had created beautiful, perfect machines that performed single functions flawlessly. Humans created practical, adaptable systems that could be modified for whatever they needed. By the end of their first year in exile, humanity had established colonies on worlds the Federation had declared uninhabitable. They had unlocked technological secrets that the galaxy's greatest civilizations had never discovered. Most importantly, they had learned to thrive in conditions that would have destroyed any other species. The industrial complexes humans built in the dark sector worked around the clock, producing ships, equipment, and weapons using manufacturing techniques that combined human practicality with architect precision. Where the ancient builders had needed massive installations to create single items, humans built compact factories that could produce hundreds of identical objects. Ben Hayes commanded the growing fleet of human vessels that patrolled their new territory. Each ship incorporated lessons learned from both human experience and architect technology. "These aren't just better ships," he reported to Admiral Morrison. "They're ships designed by a species that refuses to accept limitations." The transformation of human society was just as dramatic as their technological advances. Cut off from the familiar structures of Federation civilization, humans were forced to create new ways of organizing themselves. The old divisions between nations, corporations, and military branches began to dissolve. "We're all in this together now," Morrison told the colonial governors during one of their regular meetings. American, Chinese, European, African, those distinctions matter less than being human. We succeed together, or we fail together. This unity allowed humans to accomplish things that would have been impossible under the old system. Engineers from different backgrounds shared knowledge freely. Military officers worked with civilian scientists without worrying about jurisdictional boundaries. Resources were allocated based on need rather than political considerations. The change was most visible in the younger generation. Children who had been born during the evacuation or in the early days of settlement grew up thinking of themselves as citizens of humanity, rather than any particular nation or planet. They learned multiple languages as a matter of course and trained in whatever skills their communities needed most. "We're raising a generation that thinks differently," observed Dr. Sarah Kim, who ran the educational programs in the largest colony. "They see challenges as opportunities and impossibilities as problems waiting to be solved." By their second year in the dark sector, human colonies were not just surviving but thriving. They had turned radiation storms into power sources, hostile planets into productive worlds, and ancient ruins into technological gold mines. The refugees who had been driven from civilized space were becoming something new. And in the depths of space, hidden from the sensors of any Federation scout ship that might venture into the sector, human shipyards worked day and night building vessels that incorporated the best of both human ingenuity and architect technology. The galaxy had exiled humanity to remove a threat to their comfortable order. Instead, they had given humans the freedom and motivation to become something far more dangerous than they had ever been before. In trying to solve their human problem, the Galactic Federation had created a much bigger one. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the orbital station that served as his headquarters, looking out at the construction scaffolds where new ships took shape every day. Soon, he thought, it would be time to remind the galaxy that humanity was still very much alive. And when that day came, the Federation would learn that their greatest mistake had been giving humans a reason to prove what they were truly capable of achieving. 5 years had passed since humanity entered the dark sector, and the transformation was beyond anything Jake Morrison had imagined possible. He stood in the command center of Titan Station, a massive orbital complex that served as the capital of their growing civilization. Through the thick windows, he could see dozens of construction platforms where new ships were being built every day. The station itself was a marvel that combined human engineering with improved architect technology. It was 10 times larger than anything the Federation had ever built, yet it had been completed in just 2 years. The secret was the manufacturing methods humans had developed, which could produce complex components faster than anyone thought possible. "Give me the production reports, Amy," Morrison requested from General Fisher, who now commanded all military operations in the sector. Amy Fisher consulted her data tablet. Though she had memorized the numbers already, We're finishing 12 heavy cruisers every month, plus 24 smaller warships. Our shipyards are producing 3 times more vessels than all of Earth's facilities did before the exile. The numbers would have seemed impossible to the Federation, bureaucrats who had banished them. But humans had learned to think differently about manufacturing. Instead of building a few perfect ships very slowly, they had developed methods to build many excellent ships very quickly. Sam Rodriguez headed the research division that had cracked the secrets of architect power systems. He explained their latest breakthrough to the military leadership, speaking in simple terms that everyone could understand. "We've figured out how the architect energy cores work," Rodriguez said, holding up a device the size of a coffee cup. "Not only can we build them now, we've made them 30% more efficient and half the original size." Morrison examined the compact power unit. It looked simple, but he knew it contained enough energy to power a small city. "What does this mean for our ships?" "It means our smallest warships now carry more firepower than the Federation's biggest battleships," Rodriguez replied with a grin. "And our actual battleships are capable of things the galaxy has never seen before." The human approach to warfare had evolved during their years in exile. Cut off from traditional supply lines and facing an uncertain future, they had developed military tactics based on overwhelming technological superiority and lightning-fast deployment. Captain Helen Torres commanded the newest class of human warships, vessels that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever produced. They were sleek and deadly, incorporating both architect technology and uniquely human innovations in combat design. "These ships don't just fight battles," she explained to her crew during a training exercise. "They end them quickly and decisively. Every system is designed for maximum effectiveness in combat situations." The real breakthrough, however, wasn't technological. It was social. Exile had forced humanity to work together in ways they never had before. The old divisions that had weakened them for centuries were disappearing. Paul Martinez oversaw the civilian government that had emerged naturally from their circumstances. Unlike the complicated bureaucracies of the Federation, human organization had become streamlined and practical. "We've created something completely new out here," he told the Colonial Assembly. "We're not American or Chinese or European anymore. We're human, and that makes us stronger than we ever were when we were divided." The proof of their success came when human scout ships made contact with other species that had been exiled to the dark sector's edges. The Federation, it turned out, had a long history of banishing races they considered too dangerous or unpredictable for civilized society. The Kethmari were a proud warrior species who had been expelled for their honor-based conflicts. They lived on harsh worlds where only the strongest survived, and they had developed military traditions that impressed even human soldiers. Amy Fisher led the first diplomatic mission to make contact with the Kethmari. She arrived in a single ship, demonstrating the confidence that came from having superior technology, but she came to talk, not to conquer. "We know what it's like to be thrown away by the galaxy," she told the Kethmari war chief during their first meeting. "We're not here to conquer you or force you to change. We're here to offer partnership." The Kethmari leader was a massive being covered in natural armor, with eyes that glowed red in the dim light of his fortress. He had expected another attempt at subjugation, not an offer of alliance. "What kind of partnership?" he asked, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You fight with honor, and we respect that," Fisher replied. "You want to test your skills against worthy opponents, and we can provide that. But we do it together, as allies who choose to work toward common goals." The Kethmari were impressed by human military capabilities, but they were even more impressed by human respect for their culture. Unlike the Federation, which had tried to force all species into the same mold, humans celebrated differences and found ways to make them strengths. The Zelrani were master engineers who had been banished for conducting dangerous experiments with reality-altering technology. They could manipulate space and time in limited ways, creating effects that seemed like magic to less advanced species. When human scientists met with the Zelrani research teams, the results were extraordinary. Both species learned more in a few months of cooperation than they had in years of working alone. "Your species learns faster than any we have encountered," observed the Zelrani chief scientist during one of their joint sessions. You take our theoretical knowledge and immediately find practical applications we never considered. The Zelrani were amazed by human adaptability. They had spent centuries developing perfect theoretical models, but humans showed them how to turn those theories into useful tools. In return, the Zelrani taught humans techniques for manipulating reality that opened up entirely new possibilities. Other exiled species soon joined the growing alliance. The Drakmor were reptilian creatures who had been banished for their aggressive expansion policies. The Yeath were energy beings who had been expelled for refusing to follow Federation rules about interaction with primitive species. Each brought unique abilities and perspectives that made the coalition stronger. We're not building an empire based on conquest, Morrison explained to the representatives of all the allied species during their first joint council meeting. We're building one based on mutual benefit and shared purpose. Everyone contributes what they do best and everyone shares in the success. This philosophy created something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of one dominant species ruling over others, the human-led coalition was a true partnership where each member retained their cultural identity while working toward common goals. The military applications were immediate and impressive. Kethmari warriors brought tactics refined by generations of honorable combat. Zelrani engineers provided reality manipulation technology that made ships and weapons impossibly effective. Drakmor expansion specialists contributed knowledge of rapid colonization and resource extraction. Ben Hayes commanded the joint fleets that patrolled their expanding territory. We've created something the Federation never could, he reported to Morrison. A military force where different species don't just cooperate, they enhance each other's capabilities. The economic benefits were just as significant. Human manufacturing efficiency, combined with Zelrani space manipulation technology, could produce goods that were both superior in quality and available in massive quantities. Kethmari resource extraction methods, refined by Drakmor expansion techniques, could make hostile worlds profitable in months rather than years. By the 7th year of exile, the human-led coalition controlled dozens of star systems and included 15 different species. Their combined technology had leapfrogged centuries of normal development. Their society had been forged in the crucible of necessity into something unprecedented in galactic history. The industrial complexes they built throughout the dark sector produced ships, weapons, and equipment using techniques that no single species could have developed alone. Their vessels patrolled space lanes that the Federation had written off as too dangerous to explore. Their colonies thrived on worlds that conventional wisdom said were uninhabitable. Most importantly, they had created a civilization that valued strength through diversity rather than uniformity through conformity. Every species contributed their best qualities while learning from others, creating a whole that was far greater than the sum of its parts. The Federation had intended to isolate humanity until they learned to behave according to established galactic norms. Instead, they had given humans and their allies the freedom to become something far more advanced and dangerous than the mainstream galaxy had ever imagined possible. In trying to solve their human problem, the Galactic Federation had created something much more threatening to their comfortable, stagnant order. They just didn't know it yet. 10 years after the banishment, the first sign that humanity had not quietly disappeared came from the Federation's long-range sensor stations. Deep space monitors at the edge of explored territory began detecting massive energy signatures coming from the dark sector. The readings showed industrial activity on a scale that seemed impossible for the hostile region. Counselor Zeftar called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. His crystal body flickered with nervous light as he addressed the assembled alien representatives. The energy readings from the dark sector suggest large-scale manufacturing and construction. This contradicts all our predictions about human survival in that wasteland. The Vorthan representative's tentacles writhed with worry. Perhaps we should send a diplomatic mission to investigate the situation. It has been 10 years since we last had contact with the humans. Before anyone could respond, something unprecedented happened. The council chamber's communication system activated without permission from anyone in the room. The main holographic display lit up. showing a human face that many of the older council members recognized. Jake Morrison appeared before them, but he looked different from the defeated admiral they had banished a decade earlier. His uniform was new and bore symbols they didn't recognize. His expression showed confidence and authority that hadn't been there during his trial. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Morrison began, his voice carrying power that filled the chamber. "I am Admiral Morrison of the Terran Commonwealth, speaking on behalf of the human-led coalition of free worlds." Shocked whispers filled the massive room. The idea that humans had not only survived but formed some kind of government and alliance was beyond what anyone had expected. Most council members had assumed the exiled species would eventually die out in the hostile environment of the dark sector. "We have spent the last 10 years building something new in the space you abandoned to us," Morrison continued calmly. "We have formed partnerships with species you deemed too dangerous for civilized society. We have developed technologies you thought were too risky to pursue. We have created a form of government based on merit and cooperation rather than bureaucratic tradition." Councillor Zeftar found his voice, though his crystal form was flickering more rapidly now. "Admiral Morrison, while we are surprised to hear of your survival, you remain banished from Federation space. This unauthorized communication is a violation of the exile decree." Morrison's expression didn't change. "I'm not here to request readmission to your Federation, Counselor. I'm here to inform you that as of today, the quarantine of the Dark Sector is officially ended. Our expansion into inhabited regions begins immediately." The council chamber erupted in angry protests and demands for explanation. The idea that the exiled humans would dare to declare their banishment over was unthinkable to beings who had grown comfortable with their established order. "You cannot simply void your exile," declared the hegemony representative, his multiple eyes glowing with indignation. "The council will enforce the quarantine with military action if necessary." Morrison smiled, and there was something cold and dangerous in that expression. "You're welcome to try, but I should inform you that our coalition now includes 43 member species, controls 22 star systems, and maintains a fleet that would surprise you with its capabilities." As if to prove his point, Federation border stations throughout the outer territories began reporting contacts with unknown vessels. Ships of unfamiliar design but clearly advanced construction started appearing at strategic locations along the rim of civilized space. Captain Helen Torres led the first wave of expansion missions. Her battle group consisted of vessels that combined human engineering, Kethmari warrior traditions, and Zelrani space manipulation technology. The ships moved through space in ways that Federation sensors couldn't track properly, appearing and disappearing as they chose. When Federation patrol ships moved to intercept the newcomers, the encounters were brief and decisive. The human vessels were faster, more heavily armed, and protected by defensive systems that made Federation weapons nearly useless. "Federation vessel, this is Captain Torres of the Commonwealth ship Victory," she transmitted to a Federation cruiser that had moved to block her path. "You are ordered to withdraw from Commonwealth space immediately." "Human vessel, you are in violation of galactic law," the Federation captain replied. "Prepare to be boarded for inspection." The Federation officer never got the chance to follow through on his threat. Torres's ship moved with impossible speed, its weapons powered by technology that was decades ahead of anything in the Federation arsenal. The patrol vessel's shields collapsed under the first attack, its engines were disabled by the second, and its crew found themselves staring at destruction they couldn't comprehend. "Your ship is disabled but intact," Torres informed the Federation. "Captain, your crew is unharmed. Consider this a demonstration of Commonwealth capabilities. Withdraw now, or the next encounter will be less gentle." Similar confrontations occurred across a dozen systems as humanity's expansion proceeded with methodical precision. The Commonwealth forces didn't destroy Federation ships or conquer territory through overwhelming violence. Instead, they simply moved into regions the Federation couldn't effectively defend and established control through superior capability. Amy Fisher, now Supreme General of Commonwealth Forces, coordinated the overall strategy from her command ship. "We're not here to destroy the Federation," she explained to her commanders. "We're here to make them irrelevant. Every system we secure, every trade route we establish, every species that chooses to join us instead of them, reduces their power and influence. The most shocking development came when Commonwealth forces made contact with species that were still nominally part of the Federation. Many of these civilizations had grown tired of the Council's bureaucratic inefficiency and restrictions on technological development. The Kaldari were master traders who had struggled under Federation economic regulations for centuries. When Commonwealth representatives offered them partnership instead of subjugation, the response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Your coalition offers something the Federation never could," their chief ambassador explained during negotiations. "Freedom to grow, to explore, to become more than what we are. The Federation wants us to stay the same forever, while you offer us the chance to improve." The defection started slowly but accelerated as word spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had been content with Federation membership began questioning why they accepted limitations on their development when the Commonwealth offered partnership and advancement. Ben Hayes commanded the fleets that escorted defecting worlds into the Commonwealth. His ships were a mixture of human engineering and alien innovation that represented the best of all member species working together. "Every world that joins us makes us stronger," he reported to Admiral Morrison. "But more importantly, every world that leaves the Federation makes them weaker. We're winning this conflict without fighting a single major battle." The Federation's response was predictably bureaucratic. Emergency council sessions were called to address the crisis. Committees were formed to study the situation. Diplomatic protests were filed through proper channels. None of it had any effect on the Commonwealth's steady expansion. More troubling for the Federation was the realization that their military was no match for Commonwealth technology. Every encounter between their forces had resulted in easy Commonwealth victories. The ships and weapons that had maintained galactic peace for centuries were suddenly obsolete. "How did they advance so quickly?" demanded the hegemony representative during one heated council session. 10 years ago, they were refugees fleeing in outdated vessels. Now they have technology that makes our best warships look primitive." Zeftar had no good answer. The Federation's intelligence services had failed completely to monitor the dark sector. They had assumed that the harsh conditions would prevent any significant development, so they hadn't bothered to keep watch on the exiled species. By the end of the first year of expansion, the Commonwealth controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy's outer rim. Their territory included some of the most resource-rich systems in known space, defended by fleets that grew stronger every month. The Federation found itself increasingly isolated in the core systems, watching helplessly as their former members joined the dynamic new power that had emerged from the darkness they had created through their own fear and short-sightedness. The banishment that was supposed to solve the human problem had instead created something far more dangerous to the established order. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest threats come not from what you destroy, but from what you force others to become. 15 years after their exile began, humanity stood at the center of the largest political revolution in galactic history. What had started as a punishment had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization that stretched across hundreds of star systems. The Terran Commonwealth now included over 300 different species and controlled nearly half the known galaxy. Jake Morrison, now Fleet Admiral of the Commonwealth Navy, stood on the bridge of his flagship Enterprise as it approached Earth for the first time since the banishment. "Sir, we're receiving multiple communication requests from Federation vessels," reported Communications Officer Nancy Wright. "They're asking about our intentions and requesting permission to maintain their positions." Morrison studied the tactical display showing Federation ships trying to maintain what they hoped was a safe distance from his fleet. The Commonwealth Armada that had come to reclaim Earth consisted of over 500 vessels, each one incorporating technology that made Federation ships look like ancient relics. "Open a channel to the Federation Fleet Commander," Morrison ordered. The main screen showed Admiral Clark Murphy, Morrison's former colleague who had remained loyal to the Federation during the exile. Murphy's expression mixed relief at seeing his old friend alive with deep concern about what this reunion might mean. "Jake, it's good to see you're alive and well," Murphy began carefully. Though I have to say you've caused quite a stir throughout the galaxy with your recent activities. Hello, Clark. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances, Morrison replied calmly. But I'm not here as a Federation officer anymore. I represent the Commonwealth, and we're here to resume control of our homeworld. Murphy's face showed the strain of his position. You know I can't just allow you to take Earth. The Federation Council has declared the Commonwealth an illegal organization. They've ordered me to prevent any landing or occupation. With what? Morrison asked quietly. Clark, look at your tactical screens. Really examine what they're showing you. Then tell me honestly if you think your 60 ships can stop my 500. The truth was harsh and undeniable. The Commonwealth fleet represented technology that was generations ahead of Federation standards. Their ships moved faster than Federation sensors could track, carried weapons that could destroy enemy vessels with single shots, and possessed defensive systems that made conventional attacks useless. Captain Helen Torres, now commanding the Commonwealth's Elite Strike Division, transmitted from her position alongside the Federation force. Admiral Murphy, my sensors show that your shields are operating at less than half efficiency, and your weapon systems are using power cores that were outdated when we went into exile. I respectfully suggest you reconsider your orders. The demonstration of Commonwealth superiority went beyond mere technology. As Murphy watched in amazement, civilian ships began emerging from hyperspace. Merchant vessels, colony transports, and exploration craft from dozens of different species, all flying Commonwealth colors, and all moving with a coordination that spoke of genuine cooperation rather than forced alliance. Katie Adams, now the Commonwealth's chief scientific advisor, had spent years studying the differences between their society and the Federation's approach to governing diverse species. We've accomplished something the Federation never could, she explained in her regular reports. We've created a civilization where different species aren't just tolerated or managed. They're valued for their unique contributions and encouraged to excel. The proof of this was visible throughout the Commonwealth fleet. Kethmari warriors served alongside human tacticians, combining honor-based combat traditions with practical military science. Zelrani engineers worked with former Federation scientists, turning theoretical research into practical applications. Dozens of other species had found roles that used their natural abilities while contributing to the common good. Amy Fisher, now Supreme Commander of all Commonwealth forces, had developed military doctrines that incorporated the best aspects of every member species' traditions. We don't just have superior technology, she noted during strategy meetings. We have superior thinking. Every species brings perspectives and capabilities that make our entire civilization stronger. The Federation's response to the Commonwealth's return was predictably slow and bureaucratic. Emergency council sessions were called to address the crisis. Committees were formed to study the situation. Diplomatic protests were filed through proper channels that no longer had any authority over the Commonwealth. None of it mattered. The Commonwealth simply ignored Federation objections and proceeded with their plans. Earth is our birth world, Morrison announced during a galaxy-wide broadcast that reached every inhabited system. But more than that, it represents the principle that no council, no government, and no collection of frightened bureaucrats has the right to tell any species where they can and cannot exist. The landing on Earth was peaceful, but overwhelming. Federation forces withdrew rather than face certain destruction, and Commonwealth citizens began the process of rebuilding their homeworld. But more importantly, they used Earth as a symbol of what they had become and what they offered to others. The transformation was immediate and visible. Commonwealth engineers, using advanced manufacturing techniques developed during exile, began construction projects that would have taken the Federation decades to complete. New cities rose from the ground in months. Space elevators connected the surface to orbital facilities that dwarfed anything in Federation space. Within the first year of reclaiming Earth, Federation member species began requesting admission to the Commonwealth. The exodus started slowly but accelerated, as worlds realized they had a choice between stagnant bureaucracy and dynamic growth. The Altarians were among the first to switch sides. Their homeworld had been struggling under Federation economic restrictions that prevented them from developing their natural resources. Commonwealth membership offered them technology and support that transformed their economy within months. The Federation told us we needed to preserve our environment by limiting industrial development, explained their planetary governor. The Commonwealth showed us how to develop our resources without damaging our world. They gave us both prosperity and preservation. Similar success stories spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had accepted limitations under Federation rule discovered that Commonwealth membership offered opportunities they had never imagined. Advanced technology, unrestricted research, and genuine partnership replaced bureaucratic control and enforced mediocrity. The Commonwealth's approach to governance was fundamentally different from the Federation's top-down control system. Instead of a central authority making decisions for hundreds of worlds, the Commonwealth operated as a true alliance where each member species retained autonomy while contributing to collective goals. Paul Martinez, now president of the Commonwealth Council, explained their philosophy during meetings with potential new members. "We don't want to rule over you or change your culture. We want to work with you to help everyone achieve their full potential. Your success makes us all stronger." This approach proved irresistible to species that had grown tired of Federation limitations. The scientific communities were particularly enthusiastic about Commonwealth membership, since it offered unrestricted research opportunities and access to technologies the Federation had banned as too dangerous. 5 years after reclaiming Earth, the Galactic Federation existed primarily as a historical curiosity. Most of its former members had joined the Commonwealth, drawn by the promise of technological advancement, economic opportunity, and the chance to be part of something greater than themselves. Counselor Zeftar, in one of the Federation's final, official acts, transmitted a personal message to Fleet Admiral Morrison. "We made a grave error in judgment 20 years ago. The galaxy is clearly better for having been proven wrong about humanity and your allies." Morrison's response was characteristic of the mature civilization that had emerged from exile. "We're not interested in revenge or dwelling on past mistakes, Counselor. We're focused on building a future where every species can reach its full potential. The Federation Council and all remaining members are welcome to join that future whenever they're ready." The banishment that was meant to remove humanity from galactic affairs had instead given them the freedom to create an empire based on cooperation, innovation, and the revolutionary idea that diversity was a strength rather than a problem to be managed. The galaxy had fundamentally misunderstood what made humanity dangerous. It wasn't their aggression or unpredictability. It was their ability to take any situation, no matter how difficult, and transform it into an opportunity to become something better than they were before. The Commonwealth continued to grow and evolve, proving that sometimes the greatest civilizations are forged not through conquest, but in the fires of adversity overcome through unity, determination, and the courage to embrace change rather than fear it.